migration that is happening between from rural to urban areas in search of their livelihood. So what happens if a person travels? A person doesn't travel by himself or herself, right? It is not physically a traveling. It is a traveling that whenever they travel, they take along, with their families along with them, and they also take, their living standards. They also take along with them the cultural patterns. In other words, that they transport all this, the social way of life that exists with them in the rural areas. And while the journey, they carry all these tags, and with them cultural tags, and they come to the urban settings. So what happens when they come to the urban settings? And once they come to the urban settings, and for instance, if a rich people, they can manage to live in some big bungalows, and big gated communities. But what happens when with the poor persons? The most of the times, in the migration, it is the most poor people, and they come to the cities in search of their livelihood, and they end up working in as construction laborers. And even women also accompany the husband. They also getting engaged themselves, with the construction work, or any other works. And so in different companies, both husband and wife work, and sometimes it's only the wife works, and sometimes it is only the husband works. It depends on the situation of the family. And in all these things, and one can find that they come to the cities in search of their livelihood. So what happens in the cities? There is a slow growth of the emergence of slum nature. You can find that slum nature, right? You can find that slum nature in the urban settings. So what happens, when there is an increase in the slums? Slums are actually, and now the government is actually recognizing them, but till recently, that most of the times they went unrecognized, because the government says that no, this is the government land, you can't come and occupy this land. But the poor people, since they can't afford to stay in a rented house, they choose to live in a small houses. And those are called slums. And slums, as you all know, that those are characteristics by unhygienic conditions, right? And they don't get a proper drainage system. They don't get a proper, the electricity system. They don't get proper drainage system, and drinking water facilities, and so on. And in fact, there's a lot of problems that exist in the urban settings. And it is the poor, and they are the most vulnerable, in terms of accessing to the public welfare programs. And more importantly, the challenge is also on the shoulders of government. Is that most of the times this poor, they have their ration cards, and they have their, the availing benefits of the government schemes in the villages only, because they are registered with the anganwadis, or they are registered with the gram panchayat in the rural setup. But when they come to the urban setting, and they are deprived of all these benefits, right? They are deprived of all these benefits. And government, in a way, that is a very finding it's very difficult problem to find to locate this, these issues. And now there are some certain programs and schemes, that are being introduced by the government of India on the one hand, and on the other hand, different states in India, state governments, they also initiated certain governments programs for the benefit of the urban poor in the urban settings. But however, they are unable to reach, because it's very difficult for them to live in a particular areas, because a person may live in a particular site, depending on the time period of the time period of the the construction. For example, if a construction if a man or woman get engaged themselves in the construction activity, for instance, it takes up to 6 months or 8 months to get that construction to get complete, right? So till that period, they reside in that area. And then after that, again, they are in search of livelihood. They keep on moving from one area to another, right? So it is finding very problematic even for the governments to locate these people where they are, right? So on the other hand, even the deprived poor also is finding very difficult for them to access to the welfare programs, right? So in a way that there's a lot of problems are there in the urban settings, right? In all this change, in the chain of the existence, one can find that it is the children of those families are the most vulnerable, my dear friends, because it is, since parents, they get engaged themselves in the occupation work, they unable to concentrate on the children. So what they do, children also accompany them in the construction sites. Children also accompany them. Sometimes it is the girl child and who bear the burden of the family in terms of providing certain services to the domestic works, such as cleaning, house cleaning, cleaning the utensils and maintaining the family, and or in other words taking care of their own siblings. you know so there's a lot of burden on the woman, girl child also. In all these things, one can find that these children, they are unable to get themselves engaged in education setup. So what they do, either they get engaged to domestic works, or they get themselves engaged to the works of the occupation of the parents. So in a way that even the child labor also is getting gets increased along with this setup, right? So these are all the problems. And one more thing important is that whenever the youth particularly they travel to cities in search of their livelihood, once they are unable to find a certain or proper or meaningful or decent employment, what they do, they end up leaving as unemployed youth. So when they leave in an unemployed youth, they are more vulnerable to to get exposed to crime, even though this crime system also, they choose certain individuals who are unemployed, who want money, right? So they choose certain individuals to get in to get those people to engage in certain crimes, right? Particularly the youth, the children, they get in, they're forced to engage in certain crimes. And on the other hand, you find that a lot of juvenile crimes are also increasing in the urban setup, right? So along with that, and there is a lot of cyber crimes are also increasing. And this youth particularly, this families particularly, they are most vulnerable to get themselves exposed to the cyber crimes, right? So now, and as you all know that nowadays we are getting the caller tune, and so suppose if we want to call somebody, the first tune now we get in the mobiles is that, be government is saying that be alert to cyber crimes, because you should not share your Aadhaar card number or PAN card number or bank details with anyone, right? So these are the messages we keep getting. Why? Because this is the crime gang. They chose certain individuals and were vulnerable, who remain as unemployed in the urban setup. They choose certain individuals, and they take them to be part of this whole basket, right? So what I'm trying to indicate here is that it is the compared to the rural structure, this urban structure is very challenging. It's very challenging and dynamic in nature, not merely in terms of the modernity kind of setup, but also in terms of the different the industries, different economy, different sort of individuals that one can find in the urban setup. So these are all the challenges we have in the urban setup. So this urban sociology basically tries to understand these networks, basically tries to study the way individual reacts and lives in a social setting in the urban societies, right? In other words, the urban sociology is all about study of the people, those who live in urban societies, that is called urban sociology. That is called urban sociology. Urban sociologists, they study the social living of the individuals in the urban societies, and it studies that how the social structure exists in the urban societies. What is social structure and social institutions? For example, social institutions in the sense, for example, government, right? You have a different education system, and you have a different occupational system, right? You have a different police system, right? So all these are the social institutions. And this urban sociology tries to understand that how individual reacts with these social institutions, and how these social institutions play a huge role on the mindsets of the social individuals. So the mutual interaction, how this take place. This mutual interaction is studied by the urban sociology. This mutual interaction is studied by the urban sociology, right? So this is the urban sociology in urban social context, my dear friends, right? So even like we discussed in the last class, how rural sociology, the nature of rural sociology basically tries to approach the society, and that we discussed in the last class. It means that the rural sociology, it follows the scientific approach in studying the human society, right? So it follows certain objectivity in their findings. So even like in the same way, even the urban sociology also follows the scientific procedures in studying the human societies, in studying the human societies. It studies about the social problems, it studies about the social issues, it studies about the social nature of urban societies, my dear friends. That how an individual reacts and lives in the urban settings, it studies. And what it studies all these social issues, it studies social problems, and it offers an analysis of to find some solutions to these social problems, and it offers some insights to the government. Based on the insights provided by the urban sociologists, government design certain policies for the urban poor. Is a government design certain policies for the how to control this crime in the urban settings, isn't it? So the lot of challenges are there, my dear friends, and the lot of challenges are there. And because one challenge mixed with another, it's a chain of challenges, and one challenge and one issue cannot be separated and should be seen in isolation, because all these challenges and social issues should be located in the larger domain of social system, in the larger domain of social system, my dear friends. So in a way that this urban sociology also follows the scientific methods and of scientific methods of the natural sciences. So now we will try to understand the nature of urban sociology, the nature of urban sociology. The nature of urban sociology, as like we discussed in the rural sociology, it also follows the same procedures, my dear friends. The nature of sociology, as we discussed, that it studies about the social issues, social living, social standards of the social and economic and political standards of the individuals, those who live in urban societies, those who live in urban societies. So the nature also, the what are the characteristics, what constitutes the nature of urban sociology, that now we'll try to understand this issue, my dear friends. So as even this urban sociology also, it also follows the what it concerns about accumulation of facts from the society. And it goes urban sociologists, they go to the field, they understand what problem exists, for instance. And you find that lot of slums are there in the urban setting, and there are a lot of unhygienic conditions that exist in the slum settings, and people live very close to close, very close to close. And I'm sure you must have noticed during corona period that, and everyone worried, because at that time government said that everyone used to maintain certain social distance from one individual to another, right? And those who live in big apartments, they can reside in their homes, and by wearing mask, and by maintaining social distance. But whereas when it comes to the slums, it is very, very, very problematic. It is very, very problematic, because each house is very close to another, right? They live very side by side. It's like a panda bus, right? And you might have noticed on the roads that how a panda bus, the design of the panda bus is the design of the house for them. Then they live in such certain locations and localities, right? And Dharavi is a very big slum in Mumbai, and of course in the Asia itself, right? Very, very, very. They live very close to close, very close to close. Unhygienic conditions are very huge. Even the disease burden among the poor is also very high, and it is the women and the children who get exposed to this, the unhygienic conditions, and it poses a major health threat for them, right? So the urban sociologist goes to the field, and he collects the data from the respondents, that what are the problems that exist in the society, in those areas, and he collects the data. He come back, and he come back, and he doesn't give his own value based judgments. He maintains objectivity in his analysis, right? So, and he gives objectivity in his analysis, he maintains accuracy in his analysis, and he also maintains precision in his analysis. So these are all the methods of scientific procedures, my dear friends. So this all the scientific procedures are followed by the urban sociologists in trying to understand the social world of individuals, social world of individuals, the social problems are in societies, the social problems in societies. So there are different kind of the problems, and they also try to understand the cause and effect of the social problem. For example, suppose if you want to study the unemployment rate in urban setting, right? What the urban sociologists, they try to understand what causes the this problem and how it affects the problem and what are its solutions, and he tries to understand through cause and effect relationship in his through that approach. He tries to develop his own analysis, right? So for instance, if suppose if there is a unemployment rate in urban society, right? Suppose if there is a unemployment rate in the society, and he says that yes, there is unemployment rate in the society, it's because there is a lot of migration from rural to urban areas. And after that, when they're unable to find the suitable employment, they remain as unemployed in the society. And what happens when they remain unemployed in the society? It becomes burden not only on them, but also it becomes burden on the society. It also becomes burden on the government altogether. All right. And how a social urban sociologist offers its analysis, its conclusions, and it says that it is the government should provide certain basic environment, the employment for them. So that is one sort of the analysis one can give through the approach of urban sociology. Suppose if you take another example of another problem, right? So for instance, you can take health issues, for example, right? Health issues, for example. And you might have seen that there are a lot of health issues, and particularly during the rainy season, that the lot of underground water, the drinking water, it gets contaminated. It gets contaminated, and that water is consumed by the urban poor, and without knowing that that's a good water or bad water. They assume that it's only good water only, right? They have it, they consume it. So what happens when they consume it? There's a sudden spurt of growth of diarrhea cases. There's a sudden growth of malaria cases, dengue cases, and the hospitals in the urban settings are flooded with the urban patients, isn't it? Isn't it? So, and why it happens? Suppose if an urban sociologist goes to the field, he collects the data from the respondents. He collects the data from the social environment that exists in the urban setting, and he says that why this problem is existing? It is existing because of unhygienic conditions. It is existing because the government is unable to provide certain hygienic conditions in that locality, isn't it? So there's a lot of the understanding that that involves in the analysis of the urban sociology discipline, my dear friend. No? My dear friend. Okay, what I'm trying to indicate here is that this urban sociology, the basically it studies, the urban communities. It studies that how the social structure that exists in the urban societies, and how the culture of is being transmitted from the rural to urban societies. For example, you might have noticed, my dear friends, that urban cultures are now being replicated of the rural settings. In other words, earlier, the everyone thought that the urban settings are very rigid and completely different from the rural areas. Nowadays, it is not happening, because if a person is traveling from the rural area to urban areas, he not only travels along with his bag and the books and the clothes and his luggage. He also travels along with the packet of culture. He carries that culture to the urban settings, right? He also now we find that there are a lot of urban people also celebrating for the unlike a conventional way of understanding the modernity and traditional, generally we think that, so the person who is modern is, it doesn't follow the traditional thing. It is not that today. It is a completely mixture of these two, right? Even if a person who is living as a modern, he follows the traditional methods. And look at us, for example, though you may be modern in your own ways, right, still you follow certain traditional methods, isn't it? You also celebrate festivals along with the lines, similar lines of rural setup, isn't it? Isn't it? Along with the similar lines of rural setup. How rural people celebrate festivals, we are also celebrating in the urban societies, right? The and in other words, even the we think that the caste system is very loose in the urban societies. It is not completely true, because even in the urban societies, the culture is being transferred from the rural societies. And you can find that there are certain gated communities in the urban societies, particularly areas such as Hyderabad. You find those communities are completely dominated by only particular caste. In fact, those communities are named after caste only. Even other castes are not allowed to live in that particular area, right? So it even and you may find another example, for instance. And if you want to go and look for a rented house in urban areas, and it clearly says that it is rent house is given only to vegetarian families only. So what does it mean? So it means that he carries that culture from the rural to urban, and he says that, and he wants to transmit that culture here, right? So what I'm trying to indicate here is that the person whoever travels along, along with their luggage, they also travel along with the culture and the living patterns, to urban societies. Once they come and leave, they also repeat the same. So what exists in the rural societies, of course, in a different social setting. That social setting in the rural area is different, but the social setting in the urban area is different. But however, the transmission of that culture, the transfer of that culture to in the urban localities is also happening along with this migration. So the urban sociologist, now he wants to study this social structure that exists in the urban villages, urban urban areas. And in fact, you might have noticed that now the words are coming like this in the urban settings. Urban village, for example. People are using certain words like this. Village, the word village is coming. That, for example, there are certain restaurants, and it says that paka means hut. What we are seeing in the rural setup, and now people are using those cultural networks to establish themselves in the urban settings, right? To establish those settings in the urban settings. Now what happens after they establish in the urban settings? What happens is, because sometimes it happens in a good way, sometimes it produces a different results, right? But urban sociologists, he wants to study this. What are the changes that exist in the urban societies with the imposition of rural framework in the urban settings. So urban sociologist is always interested to look out these challenges to study in urban societies, my dear friends, isn't it? So the urban sociologists, they are interested to study the cultural patterns of urban societies in urban settings, right? And the urban sociologists are they are also interested to study social change. They are also interested to study social change, right? So what is a social change? The social change is a process of bringing change in the lives of the social individuals, in the social lives of the individuals. And how it happens is the social change happens from all the factors. Either it could be economy, either it could be from the education, either it could be from the different living setups altogether. For instance, with the introduction of this knowledge economy, there's a lot of social change that one can see in uh, the urban settings. There are a lot of software companies are coming into picture, right? The knowledge economy is increasing, and with the introduction of this knowledge economy, what the traditional industries are slowly disappearing, are being replaced by these new software industries, right? So there's a lot of change, the change, social change that is existing in the urban society. And more importantly, the women they get they themselves engaged in the production of knowledge economy in the urban societies. And you may ask me that, well, can't women getting themselves engaged in the rural economy? No, I'm not saying that point. I'm saying that even in the rural economy also, women play a huge role in production of those economy in the rural setup. But women are also now they are coming out of the domestic threshold. They are now coming into the streets. They are also studying, playing a huge role in the education system, and also in the employment generation system. Now their women are also taking a big positions in the major companies. And now can't we say this is a social change, my dear friends? It is a social change, because till recently, at least 40 years or 50 years back, women were restricted to their household works. Now women, their social status now is being changing, economic status is being changing slowly, with the implications of education on the one hand, and with the availability of the jobs employment in the on the other hand. So if this is a social change in society, in urban society. So what happens when there is a social change? Can there be a social turbulence? We do not know. Can there be a social disharmony? Yes, it might exist. And can there be a different set of crimes exist? Yes, it can also happen. These urban sociologists, they basically interested to study all these social changes, my dear, right? So though, in other words, the urban sociologists, they are basically interested in studying the social change, my dear friends. And the urban sociologists, they are also equally interested in studying development programs that exist in the urban areas. For instance, they study the welfare and the development and welfare programs of the government, for example. And you find that there are a lot of healthcare programs, right? That is being introduced by the government. And so urban sociologists, they study that how effective these programs are, for the development of urban poor in the urban settings. They study development programs. They also study the development programs such as employment generation, and it studies how these programs are so effective in uplifting the economic lives of the urban poor in urban settings. They are study this sort of aspects, my dear friends. And as I said that, and how they are also equally interested, to study the economy transformation from time to time in the urban setup. So all this, they also study equally, give importance to study the urban demography in the urban settings, my dear friends. So what is demography? Demo means people, graphy means the study. It is the study of the people, population, right? The study of population is called demography, right? And the rural social urban sociologists, they are equally interested to study how the population, the age structure of the population changing from time to time in the urban setup. And for instance, they study, for example, suppose if today, if an urban socialist goes to a slum, goes to a particular area to get how many people are residing in that area, they study, and how many people they are residing in the area, what are the age structure, and how many old women are there, how many old people are there, and how many poor people are there, in terms of age structure, how many children are there. They study, they collect the data from all these urban populations characteristics. And they also study Are there any changes? And they again go to the field after few months or 1 year, and they also study, are there any additions to this population structure? They study this aspect also, this urban nature, how it changes in terms of demography. The urban sociologists, they are keenly interested to study urban demography in the urban areas, my dear friends, right? So in a way that they study that how the reconstruction of urban life is being produced, reproduced, day to day. They're very keen to study in the urban societies. And in fact, as I said that they are also very keen to study the cultural patterns that exist in the urban societies. For instance, religion. And though we say that caste is a part of Hindu religion, but religion in a different sense, and they also give equal importance to other religions, that what are the different religious groups, those who live in society, urban society, and what are the numbers, and what are the challenges they face in the urban framework of India. For instance, the Christians, and you find minority religions such as Christians, my Muslims, Sikhs, all these religions are there, as you know that, and this urban sociologists, they are very keen to study such minority religions. What are the problems they face in the urban societies? They study all these problems faced by the uh, uh, religious minorities, right? And they also give importance to the politics of urban societies, politics of urban societies. And they give importance to study the how the political structure is influencing the lives of the urban people, and how these urban people, they influence the nature of politics. It's a mutual coordination between these two. Is there a mutual coordination? Is it a complementary healthy coordination, or is it a conflictual coordination? They study, urban sociologists study the nature of politics on the urban lives altogether, right? So, and how a woman is being portrayed, and they also give importance to study the stereotypes of gender. For instance, you find a lot of now the social media is coming, the films are also print media, and electronic media is changing its colors and directions from day to day, and with the changing in their production values, in the changing in the direction values, with the change in the technology values, and with the change in the distribution values altogether, right? And the urban sociologists, they study, for instance, they study how the gender stereotypes are being picturized in the movies, for instance, and how these movies are picturized the woman, are picturized the woman in terms of gender stereotypes. And generally, you find that woman is being picturized as a wife role, or domesticated role, or less inferior to the hero role in the movies, right? These are all the gender stereotypical roles, right? So, and how these stereotypicals are being produced and reproduced in the print and electronic media is studied by the urban sociologist, my dear friends. Urban sociologist, my dear. And it also studies and how these gender stereotypes are being produced and reproduced even in the market, my dear friends. For instance, if one can find that, I'm sure you might have also noticed that whenever you go to toy shop, for example, to buy some gifts to kids, right? So in the toy shop, and you find a different colors. I'll just give you an example, that all the pink color is for girls, all the different colors, particularly red, are for boys. Okay, and even you can find a different nature there, that baby dolls, kitchen toy set, you know uh, all these things cater to uh, girls, okay. Whereas when it comes to boys, the toys, you can see that jeeps, lorry, gun, right? All the bat and ball, these are all for boys. And how this thing whole thing is structured in the market economy, you can find that, right? It's a complete gendered stereotypical way of understanding that is being produced reproduced, and distributed in the urban markets. And these urban sociologists, they are very keen to study why this happens, and how this stereotypical nature is being produced and reproduced in the urban markets, and what happens when they produced and reproduced and distributed in the market, and how they influence on the nature of individual in the urban setting, and as well as of course in the rural setting. It studies, my dear friends. This is called the gender stereotypical roles. This is called the gender stereotypical roles. And the pink color is for the girls, and whereas the the red color that actually denotes anger. The anger is for the men. And and in fact, you might have noticed that, if a boy is crying, boy is cries, generally parents or the friends or the peer group, they say that, no, why are you crying? You're crying like a girl. Hey, what does it mean? No, boys can't cry or what? Isn't it? Boys can't cry or what? It's a natural natural feeling. When it comes out of that, emotional setup, when they cry, people generally say that, you cry because you're crying as if you're a girl. What does it mean? So this is called gender stereotypical role. And cry is for the, it means they are also, this setup is also saying that the cry is for the girl, the laugh is for the boy. What does it mean? What does it mean? The cry is for the girl means the girl should cry always, isn't it? So this is called gender stereotypical roles. This is called gender stereotypical roles. So the urban sociologists, they study and why this gender stereotypical roles are produced, reproduced, distributed in the manufactured in the urban societies, and what happens when they being implemented in the societies, and how the social relations gets influenced with the understanding of this gender stereotypical roles in the society, my dear friends. So so what I'm trying to indicate here is that urban sociologists, they study all these aspects in the urban society, that poses a great threat to the social fabric of fraternity fabric, or egalitarian fabric of Indian society, isn't it? And along with this human society, this urban sociology, they are also equally interested. They give special emphasis on environment also. They give special emphasis on environment also, because it is the environment. Suppose if you don't have a good environment, can a human society survive? No. Not just the human society, at that entire animal, plant, entire life species also, they also going to vain, right? They'll be getting destroyed. And who are the culprits of all this process? It is the human. It is the big companies, right? And I'm sure, those who reside uh, beside lakes or water bodies, you might have noticed that there's a lot of industrial contamination that is being happened, because there are a lot of industrial encroachments are being released into the water bodies in the urban as well as, of course, in the rural setups. What happens when there is no water body? Well, what if, because we have a lot of plant and animal life that reside in that water body will be vanished, right? And along with that, water bodies, and what we the human activities also posing a major threat to the environment in terms of air. Now everybody wants to have a mobile network, right? Everybody wants to have a mobile network. As you might have seen, watched a movie called Robo 2, right? That Rajnikant movie. In that movie, and in fact, it's a very beautifully picturized that social problem that exists in the urban societies, right? Everybody wants to have a big signals in their mobile phones. And what these mobile companies are doing, they are increasing the bandwidth signal of those mobile towers, right? What happens when they increase the bandwidth signal of those mobile towers? It increases the signal value, and we are so happy seeing in our mobile that, no, I'm getting full signal. We are happy, but what happens with that radiation? It poses a great threat to the bird life. Therefore, we can't find any bird in the urban societies. We can't find any bird in the urban societies. It's because of this environmental degradation, my dear friends. It's because of this contamination of this air. It's because of these mobile networks. It's because of this, the air pollution. And of course, if we have with the increase of the traffic, and now everybody wants to have an individual car, big cars. And everybody wants to have a bikes. What happens when everyone comes to there is a traffic jam? Of course, along with that, there is a air pollution. Who bothers today? Right? So neither the government nor the citizen, isn't it? So it is a major threat to the environment, and it is also a major threat to the human species itself. Right? If today bird is not appearing, tomorrow even the human society is also will not appear in the society, because everyone will vanish at one point of time if we don't have a proper check on the environmental degradation. What is happening to our society? So these urban sociologists, they challenge all these frameworks. They question all these frameworks. They study all these frameworks, my dear friends. So the basic crux of the social urban sociology is questions all these frameworks that exist in the urban societies. So my dear friends, I conclude here. So I'll ask participants to, if you have any questions, you can ask me. I'm free to answer your queries, whatever you have. Medha Mishra,
No, sir, no questions.
are you happy with my teaching?
Yes, sir. Thanks for the lecture, sir.
Yeah, please spread the word among your friends also, because let them also get interest in attending these classes, because these classes are for you, Mishra. Because ask other your friends also, if you have any touch with them, please mobilize them to attend the classes, because these classes are for you, for your benefit. Okay.
Yes,
And
sir.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mishra. So any questions you have?
No, sir.
Okay, and I thank you for attending, because it is for your benefit. Keep spreading the word among your friends, so that they also get benefit from these classes. I think this class is a recorded one, and it is
Yes, sir.
available online. Okay, it is
Yes.
available. I think it is available online, and the university authorities also will provide you that link to watch this recorded video, and keep spreading this video to your friends also, so that they get benefit from this lecture. Okay.
Definitely, sir.
Okay, thank you, and we'll meet in the next class, and I hope to see you again. Okay, and we should attend, and even other also is there. Redmi, I can see only Redmi mobile, but name is not appearing on the
Thank you,
screen.
sir.
Who is that? Another participant, another student. Medha Mishra is there, but another participant is there, but who is that? I don't know. Okay, anyways, thank you for attending this class, and I hope you enjoyed this class.
Yes,
And
sir.
if you
Thank
have
you.
any doubt, you can always approach us, and we are here to clear all your queries. And since we are here to serve you, okay, not just in terms of getting your degrees, and we are here to give you the best education, so that once you are educated in this course, and you will keep spreading the word to others, so that they're also getting influenced by your thoughts, and the value are going to get benefit from this lecture. Right?
Yes.
Thank you once again. So
Thank
we'll
you,
be
sir.
meeting again in the next class. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
sir. Thank you.